Imagine waking up on what seems like an ordinary Monday morning. You're finishing a business trip, looking forward to going home, when suddenly, a flash brighter than the sun swallows the sky. The air itself explodes. Buildings vanish. People disappear in an instant. You somehow survive. Then, just 3 days later, it happens again. No, this isn't the plot of a movie. This actually happened to one man. His name was Tsutomu Yamaguchi, and to this day, he remains the only person officially recognized by Japan as surviving both atomic bombings during World War II. But to understand just how unbelievable his story is, we first have to understand the weapon that nearly killed him. Twice. In the early 1940s, as World War II consumed much of the world, the United States launched one of the most secret scientific projects in history, the Manhattan Project. Its mission was simple, at least on paper: build a weapon so powerful that it could end the war. Thousands of scientists, engineers, and military personnel worked in complete secrecy. Among the project's scientific leaders was physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer, often remembered as the father of the atomic bomb. After years of research, the first successful nuclear explosion took place in the New Mexico desert on July 16, 1945. Less than a month later, that same technology would change history forever. The first bomb, known as Little Boy, contained uranium-235. It weighed nearly 5 tons. Instead of hitting the ground, it exploded about 600 meters, or nearly 2,000 feet, above the city of Hiroshima. That wasn't an accident. Military planners knew that detonating it in midair would spread the blast over a much larger area, maximizing its destruction. In less than 1 second, a fireball formed that reached temperatures hotter than the surface of the sun. A massive shockwave tore through the city. Winds powerful enough to rip buildings apart swept across Hiroshima. Then came the invisible danger: radiation. By the end of 1945, around 140,000 people had died from the explosion and its aftermath. One bomb, one city, gone. Now imagine standing just a few kilometers away when it happened. That was exactly where Tsutomu Yamaguchi found himself on the morning of August 6, 1945. The 29-year-old engineer had just wrapped up a 3-month business trip in Hiroshima. He was actually on his way to head home. Then something caught his eye. A lone American B-29 bomber flying overhead. He watched as a small object drifted down beneath a parachute. Seconds later, the sky exploded. Yamaguchi later described seeing a brilliant white flash before instinct took over. He dove into a nearby ditch just as the blast wave slammed into him. The force threw him through the air. His eardrums burst. The left side of his body suffered severe burns. For a moment, he couldn't even see. And yet, he was alive. As night fell, Hiroshima had become something almost impossible to describe. Entire neighborhoods had vanished. Fires burned everywhere. The city was silent, except for the cries of survivors searching for loved ones. Most people would have stayed where they were, but not Yamaguchi. The next morning, despite his injuries and wrapped in bandages, he made his way to the train station. Against all odds, trains had begun running again. He boarded one and traveled back to his hometown of Nagasaki. You'd think his nightmare was over. It wasn't. 3 days later, on August 9th, Yamaguchi went to work. His coworkers could hardly believe what he was telling them. One bomb destroyed an entire city? It sounded impossible. Then, at exactly 11:02 that morning, another blinding flash lit up the room. Another deafening explosion followed. Another mushroom cloud climbed into the sky. The second atomic bomb, called Fat Man, had just detonated over Nagasaki. This bomb was even more powerful than the first. Instead of uranium, it used plutonium-239 and unleashed the energy of roughly 21,000 tons of TNT once again. Tsutomu Yamaguchi was only a few kilometers from ground zero, but this time, the reinforced office building around him absorbed much of the blast. Once again, he survived. His wife and infant son also survived because they had been inside a sturdy shelter. The city around them did not. By the end of the year, another 70,000 people had lost their lives. Think about that for a second. One man survived history's first atomic bombing, traveled home, walked back into work, and survived history's second. The odds are almost impossible to comprehend. Yamaguchi would spend the rest of his life living with the physical and emotional scars left by those 2 days. Instead of seeking fame, he chose to tell his story as a warning. He spoke about the horrors of nuclear war, hoping future generations would never experience what he did. He passed away in 2010 at the age of 93,